Aloha, I'm Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. As a veteran of 2 Middle East deployments, I know firsthand the cost of war. I know how important it is that our Commander-in-Chief has the sound judgment required to know when to use America's military power and when not to use that power. As a Vice Chair of the DNC, I'm required to stay neutral in Democratic primaries, but I cannot remain neutral any longer. The stakes are just too high. That's why today I'm endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders to be our next President and Commander-in-Chief of the United States. We need a Commander-in-Chief who has foresight, who exercises good judgment, and who understands the need for a robust foreign policy which defends the safety and security of the American people, and who will not waste precious lives and money on interventionist wars of regime change. Such counterproductive wars undermine our national security and economic prosperity. As these elections continue across the country, the American people are faced with a very clear choice. We can elect a president who will lead us into more interventionist wars of regime change, or we can elect a president who will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. It's with this clear choice in mind that I'm resigning as Vice Chair of the DNC so that I can strongly support Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. And now I ask you, stand with me and support Bernie Sanders. Interventionist.
Going back to the old neighborhood can be hard sometimes. Walls have been built invisibly around the old neighborhood, and that police brutality is used to keep folks hemmed in, and frankly, opportunity locked out. I spent my entire life in the civil rights movement. I came up in the NAACP like my mom came up in the NAACP, like my father came up in the Congress of Racial Equality, like Bernie Sanders came up in the Congress of Racial Equality.
Black Lives Matter. We need to combat institutional racism from top to bottom in a broken criminal justice system.
I'm supporting Bernie Sanders for president, and all of us who have joined this campaign are there for the same reason. He has always fought for a populist position of let's fight for all of our families as if they are our own.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
This is everything that I have, my family. Family should be important to everyone. Mostly, I like being a mother. Alyssa, she's 6 years old. That's my baby, my only child. She likes to read me books, sit down and talk with me about her school.
But there's a lot of sand in the car.
Recently, she just learned about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. She asked me, did Rosa Parks not give up her seat for a white man? And I said, yes. She said, but those in the old days, right, Mommy? And I had to explain to her that it's not really over. This is what Mommy is. I'm an activist. And the same thing Martin Luther King was, he fought for our rights. This is the same thing I'm doing in honor of her pop-pop. My dad's name is Eric Garner. No one gets to see their parents' last moments, and I was able to see my dad die on national TV. They don't know what they took from us. He wasn't just someone that no one cared for him or no one loved him. He was loved dearly. Alyssa misses my dad. She tells me, are you okay, Mom? Do you miss Pop-Pop? She wish she was here, so her mom wouldn't be sad anymore. I'm just trying to get the truth out there to tell his side of the story. He was being the loving, caring man that he was, and he was murdered.
Every Tuesday.
For a whole year, I've protested every Tuesday and Thursday. I feel like a representative for people throughout this whole nation because I'm doing this. I'm speaking out, me being his daughter. And that's what I want to do. I just want to tell my truth. I'm never giving up. I'm never going to forget, and I don't want the world to forget what happened to my dad. Our people died for this. Martin Luther King died for this. Malcolm X died for this. And who were they? They was protesters. I'm behind anyone who's going to listen and speak up for us. And I think we need to believe in a leader like Bernie Sanders.
It is not acceptable to me that we have seen young black men walk down streets in this country, be beaten and be killed unjustly.
There's no other person that's speaking about this. People are dying. This is real. This is not TV. We need a president that's going to talk about it.
The African American community knows that on any given day, some innocent person like Sandra Bland can get into a car, and then 3 days later, she's going to end up dead in jail.
I believe Bernie Sanders is a protester.
When a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable.
He's not scared to go up against the criminal justice system. He's not scared.
I want to see an America where when young black men walk down the street, they will not be harassed by police officers. They will not be killed. They will not be shot.
And that's why I'm from Bernie.
Pues el tener un hogar es para mantener mi familia unida, que para mi esposa y yo pues es todo porque pues he trabajado para eso.
We felt secure. We had a sense of owning something, having part of the American dream. Our home meant everything to us. It was our savings. It was our children's future.
Millions of homeowners losing their property, their marriage destroyed, breaking families. Enough is enough.
Yo estoy apoyando la campaña de Bernie Sanders porque pues como no solo yo, sino que más personas como yo que hemos perdido las propiedades.
I believe in Bernie Sanders because he believes in us.
Soy Bernie Sanders y apruebo este mensaje.
Bernie Sanders, the courage to stand up to big oil because he won't take their money. That's why Sanders said no to the Keystone Pipeline and never waffled. He's also the only candidate to oppose fracking because fracking can endanger our drinking water and threaten our climate. Sanders has the most far-reaching plan to fight climate change and build a clean energy future. Bernie Sanders, people before polluters.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
My brother and I were just waiting for her in the living room when I heard a knock on the door. I saw police. They just grabbed her hands. They put handcuffs on her. They started chaining her up. And I turned around and I saw that they were also taking my brother. And I asked, what's going on? What is this? What's happening? What did we do? And they just looked at me, and there was this, this woman who just looked at me and she said, they shouldn't be here. They're illegal. They were taking them back to where they're supposed to be. And there were like 8 different agents, 8 people to take my mom, a 55-year-old woman who had given so much of herself. And they took her. I felt guilty. I felt like it was because of me. And so I just sat there. I cried for like 30 minutes. I didn't know what to do. I started texting all my friends. One of my friends, he said, Erica, you need to just need to stop. You need to stop crying. He said, I want you to stop being Erica, the daughter. Think of yourself as Erica, the activist, the organizer. I was calling everybody who I knew from DC, thousands and thousands of petitions that they were able to send. All the attorneys that I knew, every attorney said to me that it was a done deal, that she had no options, that she was gonna be deported. We held a press conference at 9 in the morning. I get a call from the Mexican consulate, and they said, are you the daughter of Maria Arreola? I said, yes, I'm the daughter. And he says, well, your mom is here, and she's gonna be just fine. She's coming back home in a few hours. One of the ways in which we're able to make a lot of those changes happen within the Dreamer movement and the young, immigrant rights movement was to show the moral dilemma. If we have any power, it is the power of our own stories. The most amazing part of coming into the campaign was how open Bernie was, how open the campaign was for two dreamers that they brought on board to help put together a platform on immigration. And it was amazing for me because this is not something that we're putting together out of just policy because we're policy experts. This is something that we were putting together because we've been through it. I used to live in the shadows. I used to live in fear, but I decided to step out to tell people who I am. My name is Erica Andiola. I'm the National Press Secretary for Latino Outreach for Bernie Sanders 2016, and I am undocumented.
Our job is not to divide. Our job is to bring people together. If we do not allow them to divide us up by race, by sexual orientation, by gender, by not allowing them to divide us up by whether or not we were born in America or whether we're immigrants, when we stand together as white, and black, and Hispanic, and gay, and straight, and woman, and man, when we stand together and demand that this country works for all of us rather than the few, we will transform America. And that is what this campaign is about. It's bringing people together. I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message. Together. There are two Democratic visions for regulating Wall Street. One says it's okay to take millions from big banks and then tell them what to do. My plan, break up the big banks, close the tax loopholes, and make them pay their fair share. Then we can expand healthcare to all and provide universal college education. Will they like me? No. Will they begin to play by the rules if I'm president? You better believe it. I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message. There are those who say we cannot defeat a corrupt political system and fix a rigged economy. But I believe we need to lift our vision above the obstacles in place and look to the American horizon. To a nation where every child can not only dream of going to college, but attend one. Where quality health care will be a birthright of every citizen. Where a good job is not a wish, but a reality. Where women receive equal pay and a living wage is paid to all. An America where after a lifetime of labor, there is time for rest and grandchildren. A nation that defends our people and our values, but no longer carries so much of that burden alone. I know we can create that America if we listen to our hearts, and that journey begins here in Iowa. I'm Bernie Sanders. I approve this message, and I ask you to join with us at the caucuses on Monday night. Thank you.
Let us be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together. I've got some real estate here in my bag. watching the cars on the New Jersey Turnpike. They've all come to look for America. All come to look for America. All come to look
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Some of your supporters say you're not
Hi,
electable.
everyone.
They
Chris
say
Bernier
you're
from
too
Fox
old. They
News
say
and
you're
News-
too far left. They say you don't bother to brush your hair. How do you respond to something like that, where people say, why bother supporting this guy? He's not going to be
It's a fair
president.
question. Let me answer it in two respects. If you look at polls out there, it turns out that in many of the polls, I am doing better than Hillary is against Donald Trump. We're doing better. Number two, when Republicans win, God forbid, when they win, Jimmy, voter turnout is very low. People, and we got millions of people really discouraged and have given up on the political process. We have brought out in this campaign over 250,000 people to meetings. We have 650,000 individuals have contributed to our campaign. We have a real grassroots.
Inside the Vidal Bean Center here, the gym at SIUE, you can see inside here, it is really starting to fill up with people as they let folks in anticipation of the Bernie Sanders speech, which is slated for 10:30 this morning. The doors opened here at about 7:30, and people have been coming in ever since. You can see the crowd just filling up the gym here. The capacity is 5,000 people inside this gym, and it may exceed that, according to fire officials here, before it is all said and done. The podium where he will speak is just in front of that "A Future to Believe In" sign. People waiting for their candidate to come out here, still perhaps an hour or more away. People waited in line for hours to see him. Some showed up as early as 1 o'clock this morning. That line outside to get in here was just incredible to see, and now the people have filed in here. The campaign says Bernie Sanders will be addressing many of the issues we have heard from him before, such as the call for free tuition in public colleges and universities. He will also call to get big money, as he calls it, out of politics. He will talk about combating climate change as well as universal health care. The seats behind where the podium is are starting to fill up now, and fire officials actually told me that there could be a scenario where they could exceed the 5,000 women here, and some people might not be able to actually get into this room to see him speak. The latest polls in Illinois have Bernie Sanders still trailing Hillary Clinton by some 20 points, but his supporters here are confident that they can close that gap. The primary for Illinois is March 15th, as is the primary for Missouri. Strategically speaking, Sanders can speak here at SIUE and also reach people in Missouri, so he kind of gets a 2-for-1 by coming here. He hits the millennials, the college crowd, where he has been getting so much
campaign, and I believe that if I am the Democratic nominee, you're going to see voter turnout go way up. I think we're going to win the White House. I think we recapture the Senate. We do well in the House. We win governor's chairs. Our job is not just to defeat Republicans. Our job is to revitalize American democracy, bring people who have given up on the political system back into the system, and create a government which represents them rather than large campaign donors.
You said a moment ago, you said God forbid. You say you're culturally Jewish, you don't feel religious. Do you believe in God, and do you think that's important to the people of the United States?
I am who I am, and what I believe in and what my spirituality is about is that we're all in this together. That I think it is not a good thing to believe that as human beings we can turn our backs on the suffering of other people. That we should not be living. And this is not Judaism. This is what Pope Francis is talking about, that we cannot worship just billionaires in the making of more and more money. Life is more than that. That we are living in a nation today which has seen a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, massive income and wealth inequality. And you know what? We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. We are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a right. The only country that doesn't have paid family and medical leave. Many other countries are providing free tuition in their public colleges and universities. So essentially what I think is we do best as human beings. We fulfill our lives when we work together rather than say, hey, I want it all and I don't care about the hungry kid down the street. I don't think that's what America should be about.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Kimmel. Thanks for watching. It means a lot.
When Senator Sanders talks about a rigged economy and a rigged political system that drowns out the voices of everyday people like you and like me, we need a champion who's going to tell it like it is. The cause is right, and the time is now. Senator Sanders is not progressive when it's convenient. Can I get an amen? The cause is right and the time is now. Senator Sanders does have a plan to lift everybody in this country, and he fully understands. Sisters and brothers, I've traveled all over this country, both for the senator and with the senator. And I can tell you when he was in Baltimore with Dr. Jamal Bryant and walking those streets in the African-American community to see where the tragedy happened against Brother Freddie Gray, Senator Sanders didn't shrink from that. People were lining up, everyday people saying to Senator Sanders, we need jobs. We believe in you. Thank you for making this run. And during that meeting with the African-American ministers, they were talking about not only the fact that black lives matter, but black prosperity matters, black uplift matters. The cause is right, and the time is now. Senator Sanders stood up when he didn't have to stand up as a young man. The way to define the character of a person is what they do when the cameras are not on, what they do when they don't benefit from it personally. He is a champion for civil rights and social justice in this country. The time is right and the cause is now. Senator Sanders understands that we as a country, black, white, Asian, Native American, young, seasoned, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Gentile, atheist, all of us together, all of us together, all of us together. And when he talks about running for president of the United States of America, you don't hear him say the word I, he says we. This race is about us, we the people, and we need a champion like Senator Bernie Sanders.
And on a few personal questions. When we talked to you in New Hampshire, we talked about religion.
Yep.
You said your spirituality is that we are all in this together.
Yep.
Explain to people what in your head and in your heart motivates that togetherness. Is there a higher power? Is there a higher intelligence? What do you believe in?
This is what I believe. Every great religion in the world, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, essentially comes down to do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. And what I have believed in my whole life, I believed it when I was a 22-year-old kid getting arrested in Chicago fighting segregation. I believed it in my whole life. That we are in this together, not words. The truth is, at some level, when you hurt, when your children hurt, I hurt. I hurt. And when my kids hurt, you hurt. And it's very easy to turn our backs on kids who are hungry or veterans who are sleeping out on the street. And we can develop a psyche, a psychology, which says, I don't have to worry about them. All I'm going to worry about myself. I need to make another $5 billion. But But I believe that what human nature is about is that everybody in this room impacts everybody else in all kinds of ways that we can't even understand. It's beyond intellect. It's a spiritual, emotional thing. So I believe that when we do the right thing, when we try to treat people with respect and dignity, when we say that that child who is hungry is my child, I think we are more human when we do that than when we say, hey, this whole world is me. I need more and more. I don't care about anybody else. That's my religion. That's what I believe in. And I think, most people around the world, whatever their religion, their color, share that belief that we are in it together as human beings. And it becomes more and more practical. If we destroy the planet because we don't deal with climate change, trust me, we are all in it together. All right? So we have got to work together, and that is what my spirituality is about.
Run them jewels fast, run them jewels fast, run them. How are you?
How come I got the tie on and you're looking?
Well, it's an honor. I almost did the thing of putting on the suit, and then I was like, I'll be bullshitting him at my audience. Come on in. Welcome to my shop. I'm not a reporter, so I'm not going to pretend to be. I honestly just want to have a conversation with Senator Sanders that I think that other people need to hear. Other people from my community, meaning the African American community, from the greater community of my local politics of Atlanta, and as an American. And I really just would like to have a candid conversation. That's it. Don't make me look fat. Don't make the senator look old.
I like this man.
And Mark, that's the camera.
I trust old people. I'm gonna be very frank. Not all old people.
Well, I'll talk to some old people. I myself, as a young person, I respect old people myself.
If someone wants to shut that dog up, we can grab some dog food and throw something over the fence for me if that's getting in you guys' way. All right, sorry about that.
Okay.
We in the hood, pit bulls are running like a DMX video.
In my state, what a gun means is you go out hunting. A lot of people hunt.
Here too, absolutely. I got some deer meat in the freezer.
All right, let's sit down and eat it.
You should. What has kept you from 1961 forward? What has kept you from that college kid who organized, with SNCC? I still find that amazing. What has kept you?
Why do you find it so amazing?
Because that's not the narrative we've been taught. I don't find it personally amazing. I find it amazing I didn't know you. I'm finding it amazing 20 years ago you weren't always already on my radar.
But that's because look, I'm known in my own state, 98% of the people. Nobody in Georgia knows me. The television is not particularly interested.
But I should. I'm from the activist community. I should know you. You should be, in every black barbershop, there's 2 black guys and an honorary white guy. So in my shop, you're really about to get the heralded position of the white guy. It's gonna be like Martin, Malcolm, Bernie. If you could do this and do my band's logo.
This is what you want?
Yeah. Could I get one with my phone?
Yeah, absolutely. Stand me to it.
I don't know what the hell I'm doing here.
You're doing my band.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Run the jewels.
Fried chicken salad. So you can take some with you, but I suggest getting it. You represent the opportunity for me to allow black people to get back into the game of owning businesses, back into the game of having trade and skill again. And it's something even our politicians don't talk about in the same way. But the stuff that you talk about is transformative in that way.
This guy says your fried chicken is good. Is that true?
That is so
I told
very
him
true.
That run the jewels.
Other comments, simply, straightforwardly, what's going on in the community? What are we seeing with our own eyes? Woman right there. Yes, ma'am. Please stand up.
Hi, my name's Allie. I'm a resident of Davison, which is about 10 minutes out. And I'm a member of the Flint Youth Ballet. So I'm around lots of my peers that live in Flint. And it's heartbreaking to see some of my best friends go through this water crisis, to go home and not be able to shower or just drink water. See my younger students tell me, my family can't afford to go out and buy water bottles, and now it's starting to affect our car payments, and we're so focused on the water. And now my mom is a nurse anesthetist. She works at McLaren Flint. She didn't know what was going on at the hospital, and now people aren't trusting her. So I want answers. I want to know why my mom's getting blamed when she didn't know anything. I want to know why my peers can't even go home and drink and shower.
I lost twins in July of 2015 due to being poisoned. Both of my kids have tested positive for high levels of lead. My son has been suspended 56 times this year in school. He's in the 1st grade and he doesn't even want to attend school anymore.
We throw around all these terms like brain damage and can you imagine being a 10-year-old kid? Like, these kids are aware of what's going on for some part. And I just can't imagine being a 10-year-old kid who has behavior issues, who understands that they are poisoned and something's going on. And I just am scared that people are going to forget about us and forget about these children. And these children know what's going on, and I feel like I see them and they are defeated.
If the billionaires at Wall Street can get billions for the mess they made and get bailed out, if we don't need band-aids of 38 million, 28 million, we need numbers like billions. Period.
Hi, thanks for coming. I don't want to take away anything from the extremely terrible health situation that's going on right now. But that is not the only problem that we have here, Bernie. That's not it. When I was born here in Flint in 1980, we had the highest median household income of anywhere in the world. It was $84,000 median household income. Now, it's $21,000. We are the 2nd poorest city in the country. 41% of our residents live below the federal poverty line, and as you know, you get close.
Silently streaming, and the rocket's red glare. Say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
To that level, and you're already destitute. We have 1 in 3 structures in this city that need to be torn down. We've been in the, top 3 most violent cities of the country for how many decades? Decades, Bernie. How many of our schools have been closed for lack of funding? We have 3 elementary schools that are open still here. We have a water crisis right now. But that's not the only problem that we have here. And we have no way to deal with it. We have a water crisis now, but when the attention turns somewhere else, the homes, the vacant structures, they're still going to be here.
In a State of the Union speech, the president talked about, quote unquote, middle-class economics, and that is an excellent way to put it. It's a powerful reminder of what drives growth and prosperity. And when you understand it, you understand why our economy cannot function when those at the very top are pocketing 100% of the income gains. Let me repeat that. The top 1% is not getting 50% of all new income, not getting 80% of all new income. They are getting 100% of all new income. Our most important job creator, the vast middle class, is disappearing. Squeezed by decades of rising costs and stagnant incomes, they just can't do it. When those at the very top take more and more of the gains, our job creators, i.e. the middle class, get squeezed. Debt becomes a substitute for income, and the economy becomes even more fragile. Mr. President, let me show you an incredibly revelatory chart.
I'm a registered nurse, a Ferguson activist. Woo, that's right. And I'm an ordained pastor, but I do understand what it's like to work 40 hours a week and still live in poverty. I know what that feels like. For some reason, my round hips and my dark skin says that I must make less money than my counterparts, and I don't understand that. When I stood with others in Ferguson against the tanks and the tear gas after the death of Michael Brown, I was standing against years of injustice, standing against years of racial inequality. I was standing against racial divisions and out-of-control violence in cities like St. Louis, Missouri. My state of Missouri, which has a D rating in education, #1 in African American school suspensions, #1 in violent crime, #1 in murders, a national leader in the school-to-prison pipeline, and last in preschool enrollment. But today, I stand here not against something, but for something. I stand here. I stand here for someone that I believe in. I stand here for a leader who I know will challenge the status quo. I stand here with Bernie Sanders because I believe he will fight for that racial injustice. He will fight for gender, and he will fight for racial equality. He will fight for free education for all. That's right. Bernie Sanders will stop to fight mass incarceration of people of color. He will fight for the American worker and the middle class. Today, I stand with him. Do you stand with Bernie today? And as this ordained pastor, I have a crazy idea that there should be a love for humanity. So I'm looking for somebody that has a love for humanity. So I stand with Bernie Sanders. I believe he will stand with all Americans for President of the United States. So today, I, Cori Bush, endorse Bernie Sanders for President of the United States of America. Thank you. You all are really on fire. Woo, the burn is strong, the burn is strong, okay. So first of all, I want to thank all of the visitors to this campus, the faculty, the staff, and my fellow students who I have a special affection for because I'm one of you. My name is Alicia Sagne, and I'm a student at St. Louis University, a Ferguson activist, a St. Louis activist. So just like many of you today, I've worked to balance campus life, home life, and now, by your and my presence, political life. Many of you may ask, what political life? I'm not running for office. I would counter that question with the declarative statement that you are an integral part of the process. You have the power, the will, and the youthful vigor to help us bring about the political revolution that's well needed. For all of us, much is at stake. We have a future President, Bernie Sanders, and I do mean that, future President Bernie Sanders, a person who is willing to fight for tuition, to fight for free tuition at public universities. How many of you would like to walk out of college debt-free? If we can pay for wars, we can surely provide an education to our citizens. You have in future President Bernie Sanders a person who is willing to fight for equality and equal pay for women. In this country, women make 79 cents to the dollar for what every man makes, and for Black and Hispanic women, it's even lower. Young people, you have the opportunity to be the force in righting this wrong by championing a man who has been at the forefront of this struggle. You have in future President Bernie Sanders a person who has put his body on the line for equality way before it was popular to do so. I know a little something about this as I am an activist myself from the streets of Ferguson. This is a man who not only speaks the words, but walks the walk. My mother always told me, faith without work is dead. I have a twist on that old statement. Lip service without work is dead. Bernie Sanders has been putting in the work, so now it is our time to join him. To channel Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So we're going to do something about it. We are going to do something about it. We are going to get more politically active. We are going to get progressive people in Congress and local elections that will assist future President Bernie Sanders in passing his agenda. He can't do it alone. He needs us. We need revolutionary thinkers, revolutionary doers, and revolutionary recruiters for this revolutionary time. And I know just the person for the job. Every one of you who are within the sound of my voice, it will take you to talk to your family and friends about this revolutionary plan and this revolutionary train. We are boarding now, and we don't want anyone to get left out. In fact, we need everyone to aboard the combat of hate, combat bigotry, combat corruption, and greed that is permeating our political system, government, and country. They say if you want to do something that has never been done, you have to do something you've never, if you want something you've never seen, you have to do something that has never been done. This may mean you being Bernie's personal campaign manager. It means you learning, living, and breathing campaign and platform, not by copying from another candidate's platform. We students know that plagiarism is frowned upon on campuses. Campaigns, not so much. To the African American students, I know that in our communities, the Clintons are held in high regard. However, I want you to look just a few miles from here at the decimated ruins of East St. Louis and North St. Louis. What the Clintons won't tell you is how their policies have drove these communities to their worst state ever by the overcriminalization of Black people, utilizing fear-mongering by labeling them super predators, and passing laws that enabled the growth of the largest prison population in the world. Their policies targeted the super poor and put generations in a cycle of inescapable poverty. If you don't believe me, take a trek to East St. Louis and look around and think about how these communities failed during the Clinton years. Sometimes you can put on an old pair of familiar shoes because they in the past have provided perceived comfort. However, the same shoes that you love so much may give you calluses. We all know someone who is willing to be that difference in our lives. I would like to welcome the change maker, the man who is willing to take the reins of our government from the billionaire class, who is going to provide the leadership we need in this country. Vote for Bernie. And remember, talk is cheap. Everybody can talk. Everybody has something to say. Miss Hillary, she loves to talk, but we know she's really for the billionaire class.
And this chart talks about distribution of average income growth during expansions and what the bottom 90% received versus what the top 10% of families received. And we go back from the period of 49 to 53, 54 to 57, 58 to 60, 61 to 69, 70 to 73, 75 to 79, 82 to 90, 91 to 2000, 2001 to 2007, 2009 to 2012. That's the last information we have. And what this chart shows is that in the last 3 decades after World War II, the vast majority of Americans did well when the economy did well. This is the percentage of new income that went to the bottom 90%, and this is what the top 10% got. They did okay. 10% did pretty well. They got 20% of all new income. But the bottom 90% got 80% of the income. And then 54 to 57 went down a little bit, but the bottom 90% did pretty well. Bottom 90% did pretty well. Bottom 90% did pretty well. Bottom 90% begins to do less well. Less well, but they're still getting a majority of the new income. Whoa! What happens in 1982? Well, Ronald Reagan is president, and the good news is we are into trickle-down economics. And here it is. And this chart tells it all. This is what the top 20% got. This is what the top 10% got. This is what the bottom 90% got. And here we are in the last number here, where we are today. And lo and behold, the top 10% gets it all. Gets it all. And frankly, this is a metaphor. This is an example of exactly what trickle-down economics is all about. So, early on, when we have a recovery, most of the new income goes to working families and the broad middle class. Since the 1982 period, almost all of the new income goes to the top 1%. And today, as I mentioned, rather unbelievably, all of the new income is going to the top 1%. Mr. President, clearly this is unacceptable. This trend of the rich getting richer and everybody else getting poorer is not what America is about, and it has got to be changed, and we have to rethink the fundamentals of supply-side trickle-down economic theory. And the difficulty that we have, to be frank, is that especially since Citizens United, and especially since the millionaires and billionaires can pour huge amounts of money into the political process, for them, this is great news. This chart is fantastic news. They have won. They contribute to candidates. Candidates go out and tell us we need more tax breaks for the rich, we need more deregulation, and these are the results. So not only do we need to change our economic policies, clearly we need to change campaign finance so the work being done by Congress reflects the needs of working families and not just the billionaire class.
He's a self-described democratic socialist from Vermont who got his political start as the mayor of Burlington. A long shot then, a bigger long shot now. He's an unlikely presidential candidate taking on the biggest frontrunner the Democratic Party has ever seen.
One poll shows him down 60 points. I don't know that Bernie Sanders can beat Hillary Clinton.
You know, you almost had to feel sorry for Bernie.
He may not have any chance.
That's all going to disappear by the time we get to Iowa. This Bernie mania thing could burn out.
She is ahead, George, by a long shot.
They don't see Bernie Sanders as a real threat.
Bernie, stop spitting.
He's not going to be the nominee.
Major structural problems with Bernie Sanders.
Clinton crushes him in national polls by more than 40 points.
Hillary probably will inevitably be the nominee.
Even Democrats admit he may not be their best shot at the White House.
He is not going to be the nominee.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders may be gaining a little bit of momentum as he seeks to challenge Hillary Clinton. His views may be gaining traction.
Look at Bernie Sanders' rise, tripling his support.
The hottest thing in American politics right now is a socialist.
That is a rocket ship.
I don't think we've seen more enthusiasm for any candidate.
Sanders, 35.
Senator Bernie Sanders drew a monster crowd.
3,000 in Minneapolis, 5,000 in Burlington.
We know what Bernie Sanders wants, and a lot of the Democratic Party, let's be honest, they want it too. This morning, Clinton is feeling the burn.
Throwing a scare into Hillary Clinton's camp.
Bernie momentum drawing larger crowds than every candidate running.
Possibly as many as 10,000 people. It is real.
We're worried about him, sure.
It was another full house for Senator Bernie Sanders.
He could win Iowa. He could win New Hampshire. A statistical tie.
We've got 28,000 people in Portland.
Sanders is a summer sensation.
70,000 people lined up.
Bernie Sanders was greeted like a rock star.
The crowd is really swelled. These people are very excited. Clinton dropping below 50%. Clinton's lead now down to single digits.
Hillary Clinton has lost a third of her supporters.
Sanders has nearly doubled his support.
He has an electable agenda.
Bernie Sanders beating Clinton in New Hampshire.
Sanders gaining 15 points.
Once thought to be the longest of long shots with a commanding lead.
Bernie Sanders could get elected president.
Hillary Clinton is feeling the burn. Checkmated by Democratic Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders on fundraising.
It was a record-breaking weekend for Bernie Sanders.
Who do you think the Democratic nominee will be?
Sanders.
What Bernie Sanders is running against is literally the power structure.
Bernie Sanders getting his first endorsement from a member of Congress, Raul Grijalva.
He has gotten 1 million individual donations, and he reached that much earlier than Barack Obama did. Congressman Keith Ellison says he will support Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
No one could predict the huge crowds and the surge of popularity for Bernie Sanders, a man who's been around the block fighting for poor and working class Americans.
Who won the debate?
Bernie Sanders! Bernie Sanders won this debate.
Bernie Sanders won the debate tonight. 75%. Huge margin.
He's got the support, the kind of enthusiasm that often counts on caucus night.
But it has now collected more than 2 million contributions, and Sanders has picked up his biggest labor endorsement to date from the 700,000-member Communications Workers of America. And the million-member progressive group Democracy for America announced that it, too, was throwing its support behind the Democratic challenger.
62% of Democrats now say they could see themselves supporting him.
A mock election that hasn't been wrong in 40 years declares Bernie Sanders will be our next president.
He got more contributions, individual donors, than anybody in American history.
Sanders does better against the Republicans than Clinton.
Clinton leads Donald Trump by 8 points, but Sanders leads him by 13.
Breaking news right now. We've got a race, folks. Bernie Sanders with his biggest lead yet.
Bernie Sanders has built something real.
He's pastor just now in Iowa.
I can't get over your map. Bernie Sanders was purple and the whole country was purple.
He has the momentum right now.
Your focus group believed that Sanders won the debate.
Clearly, people are feeling the burn.
Birmingham, Alabama, where he addressed an overflow crowd of about 7,000.
That's where he's weak?
This is incredible.
Well, I would hate to see where Bernie Sanders is strong if I were in the Clinton campaign.
Bernie Sanders up 27 points.
With 13 days to go, it's Hillary Clinton's nightmare scenario.
There is no way to describe these new New Hampshire numbers other than stunning.
People that think that Bernie Sanders is like the easier target right now.
Oh, no.
Do not sense what 2016 is all about.
What do young women see in Bernie Sanders? They actually think that he's better on specific issues.
He's captured both authenticity and joy.
Bernie Sanders is catching up to Hillary Clinton nationally.
15,000 people turned out in St. Paul after 6,000 flocked to see Bernie Sanders in Duluth.
Bernie Sanders with 49.
The former head of the NAACP will endorse Bernie Sanders.
He's tapping into the anger about Wall Street, about the economy, about the middle class. He's direct, he's blunt, he's funny.
Bernie Sanders still has a hold over the youth vote.
As Bernie Sanders pulled into a virtual tie with Hillary Clinton in a national poll, he packed the famed Exeter Town Hall so tight, the fire marshal shut it down, and a spillover crowd waited in the snow.
In a statistical tie, and in New Hampshire, Sanders is way out in front.
Bernie Sanders will decisively win the Democratic presidential primary here in New Hampshire.
Bernie Sanders, we project, will be the Democratic winner.
They're watching some video of Bernie Sanders shooting hoops because we understand, if you can believe it, that's actually what he's doing right now with his kids, with his grandkids.
It didn't take long for CNN to project that Sanders won the event. A concession was already at the ready by the Clinton campaign.
18 to 29-year-olds. Sanders destroys Clinton on this score. Independent voters. Sanders again going away, 72%. This is the wow number of the night. They are 55% of the electorate, and Sanders beats Clinton among Democratic women 55% to 44%.
Very impressive win for Bernie Sanders.
The Sanders campaign is operating a very big, aggressive operation throughout the state of South Carolina. They actually have more offices, more staff here than the Clinton campaign. They were going door to door talking to African-American voters. We actually didn't run into any Clinton supporters.
If I had to vote today, I would be leaning toward Team Bernie.
Thousands of Sanders supporters are here. There are people of every age here who say they're feeling the burn.
One study found ABC's World News Tonight gave Donald Trump 81 minutes through the first 11 months of last year. Bernie got 20 seconds. Then he practically tied Hillary in Iowa and decimated her in a New Hampshire landslide.
This is not a gadfly campaign any longer. They're holding their own against the Clinton machine. It's kind of amazing to watch.
Senator Bernie Sanders clobbered Hillary Clinton in New Hampshire with a huge win. In fact, this was the single largest margin of victory for any non-incumbent in a primary since JFK.
According to a new National Fox poll of likely Democratic voters, Hillary Clinton is actually trailing Sanders by 3 points.
When we come together as a nation, when we say enough is enough, when we stand together, there is nothing we cannot accomplish.
Back in the book segment tonight, inequality in the USA. A new study released by the World Bank says that American income inequality is on the rise.
That means that the rich... Perhaps you don't see a problem with all this. If so, this could be from a simple lack of information.
Good afternoon. Could I have my slides, please? Thanks. I want to talk to you about the impact of inequality. Good afternoon. Could I have my slides, please? Thanks. I want to talk to you about the impact of inequality, and I want to talk about it in a particular and perhaps rather peculiar context, that of the rich, market, developed economies. This is a chart showing life expectancy up the side, so ranging from 40 to 80 years, and it's plotted against national income per person across the bottom. And you can see that among the developing and emerging economies, as countries get richer, life expectancy improves rapidly. But beyond a certain point of economic development, that relationship is lost, and there's no further benefit to increased material living standards among the rich countries. So those are just those countries on that flat part of the curve. And here in these rich countries, Norway, USA, they're about twice as wealthy as these countries at the other end, Israel, Greece, and Portugal. No relationship with life expectancy whatsoever. So we in the rich countries have got to the end of what economic growth can do for us in terms of health and happiness. And we're the first generation for whom that's really true. For all of human history, the best way to improve the quality of human life has been to improve material living standards. That's no longer true for these countries up here.
But if we look within our societies, there are extraordinary social gradients in health, running right across society. Not a difference between the poor and the rest of us. Even the people just below the top have less good health than the people at the top.
And these gradients are true for a whole range of health and social problems, and yet we see no effect of income levels between countries and only within.
So income means something very important within our societies and nothing between them. The explanation of that paradox is that within our societies we're looking at relative income or social position, social status, where we are in relation to each other.
It's not about absolute standards of living, it's not about what you can buy, it's about the meaning of income for people and the meaning of their social position. We looked for data that was comparable across these rich market democracies. We put it into an index. It's a very simple index, but it contains data on life expectancy for different countries, the maths and literacy scores of 15-year-olds, infant mortality rates, rates of murder and imprisonment, teenage births, levels of trust, obesity, mental illness, which includes drug and alcohol addiction in the figures we use, and for a few countries, social mobility. Put them all together in an index. If you're higher up on the y-axis, you're doing worse. If you're low down, you're doing better. Again, plotted against national income per person, no relationship whatsoever. Nothing going on. It looks just like that picture I showed you before for life expectancy. But if we plot the exact same index against a measure of income inequality, of distribution rather than averages, that's what we get. Looks more like physics with a bit of measurement error than anything in the social sciences. Countries at the top that are most unequal, UK, New Zealand, Portugal, USA, a higher prevalence of health and social problems. The more equal countries down here, Japan and the Nordics, doing so much better. Now, the measure we're using along the bottom here is the ratio of the incomes of the top fifth of the population to the bottom fifth.
And you see in the more equal countries on the left, the top 20% are about 3.5, 4 times as rich as the bottom 20%. But at the more unequal end, the differences are twice as big. On that measure, we are twice as unequal as some of the other successful market democracies.
We knew that this was politically sensitive stuff, and we didn't want to be accused of having picked our countries to suit our argument. But we thought we'd repeat it all again in an independent setting. So we did it all again for the 50 states of the USA, looking at exactly the same issue. Do the more unequal states have more health and social problems? We created the same index, and again, a statistically significant higher level of health and social problems in the more unequal US states.
In graph after graph, we find that the countries that do worst, whatever the outcome, seem to be the more unequal ones. And the ones that do well seem to be the Nordic countries and Japan. So what we're looking at is general social dysfunction related to inequality. It's not just one or two things that go wrong, it's most things. Another really surprising part of this picture is that it's not just the poor who are affected by inequality. All the way across the social hierarchy. The biggest differences are at the bottom of society, but even at the top, there seems to be a small benefit to being in a more equal society. I think I'm looking and talking about the psychosocial effects of inequality, more to do with feelings of superiority and inferiority, of being valued and devalued, respected and disrespected.
More unequal societies create greater status hierarchies and therefore more status competition, and therefore more consumerism. People work longer hours, they get into debt more because they need to purchase things because status matters more.
It also leads to status insecurity. We worry more about how we're judged and seen by others, whether we're regarded as attractive, clever, all that kind of thing. What all the data I've shown you so far says is the same thing. The average well-being of our societies is not dependent any longer on national income and economic growth. That's very important in poorer countries, but not in the rich developed world. But the differences between us and where we are in relation to each other now matter very much.
The inequality present in a country isn't a static characteristic of national culture or the way things always have been. It's not unchangeable. Countries become more equal, they become less equal, they shift, they move. Places can change, societies can change, and thinking can change. The great social movements of the 20th century haven't been decided upon by politicians or even academics. They've been driven by social movements and people requiring change. We're at an important moment in history where there is space for debate about what our economies should look like, how they should be structured, who they work for. The economic crisis is also an opportunity for real new thinking about how we make economies work for people and not vice versa.
Aloha, I'm Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. As a veteran of 2 Middle East deployments, I know firsthand the cost of war. I know how important it is that our Commander-in-Chief has the sound judgment required to know when to use America's military power and when not to use that power. As a Vice Chair of the DNC, I'm required to stay neutral in Democratic primaries, but I cannot remain neutral any longer. The stakes are just too high. That's why today I'm endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders to be our next President and Commander-in-Chief of the United States. We need a Commander-in-Chief who has foresight, who exercises good judgment, and who understands the need for a robust foreign policy which defends the safety and security of the American people, and who will not waste precious lives and money on interventionist wars of regime change. Such counterproductive wars undermine our national security and economic prosperity. As these elections continue across the country, the American people are faced with a very clear choice. We can elect a president who will lead us into more interventionist wars of regime change, or we can elect a president who will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. It's with this clear choice in mind that I'm resigning as Vice Chair of the DNC so that I can strongly support Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. And now I ask you, stand with me and support Bernie Sanders.
Going back to the old neighborhood can be hard sometimes. Walls have been built invisibly around the old neighborhood, and that police brutality is used to keep folks hemmed in, and frankly, opportunity locked out. I spent my entire life in the civil rights movement. I came up in the NAACP like my mom came up in the NAACP, like my father came up in the Congress of Racial Equality, like Bernie Sanders came up in the Congress of Racial Equality.
Black Lives Matter. We need to combat institutional racism from top to bottom in a broken criminal justice system.
I'm supporting Bernie Sanders for president, and all of us who have joined this campaign are there for the same reason. He has always fought for a populist position of let's fight for all of our families as if they are our own.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
This is everything that I have, my family. Family should be important to everyone. Mostly, I like being a mother. Alyssa, she's 6 years old. That's my baby, my only child. She likes to read me books, sit down and talk with me about her school.
But there's a lot of sand in the car.
Recently, she just learned about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. She asked me, did Rosa Parks not give up her seat for a white man? And I said, yes. She said, but those are in the old days, right, Mommy? And I had to explain to her that it's not really over. This is what Mommy is. I'm an activist. And the same thing Martin Luther King was. He fought for our rights. This is the same thing I'm doing in honor of her pop-pop. My dad's name is Eric Garner. No one gets to see their parents' last moments, and I was able to see my dad die on national TV. They don't know what they took from us. He wasn't just someone that no one cared for him or no one loved him. He was loved dearly. Alyssa misses my dad. She tells me, are you okay, Mom? Do you miss Pop-Pop? She wish she was here, so her mom wouldn't be sad anymore. I'm just trying to get the truth out there to tell his side of the story. He was being the loving, caring man that he was, and he was murdered.
Every Tuesday.
For a whole year, I've protested in every Tuesday and Thursday. I feel like a representative for people throughout this whole nation because I'm doing this, I'm speaking out, me being his daughter. And that's what I want to do. I just want to tell my truths. I'm never giving up. I'm never going to forget, and I don't want the world to forget what happened to my dad. Our people died for this. Martin Luther King died for this. Malcolm X died for this. And who were they? They was protesters. I'm behind anyone who's going to listen and speak up for us. And I think we need to believe in a leader like Bernie Sanders.
It is not acceptable to me that we have seen young black men walk down streets in this country, be beaten and be killed unjustly.
There's no other person that's speaking about this. People are dying. This is real. This is not TV. We need a president that's going to talk about it.
The African American community knows that on any given day, some innocent person like Sandra Bland can get into a car, and then 3 days later, she's going to end up dead in jail.
I believe Bernie Sanders is a protester.
When a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable.
He's not scared to go up against the criminal justice system. He's not scared.
I want to see an America where when young black men walk down the street, they will not be harassed by police officers. They will not be killed. They will not be shot.
And that's why I'm from Bernie.
Pues el tener un hogar es para mantener mi familia unida,
que para mi esposa y yo pues es todo porque pues he trabajado para eso.
We felt secure. We had a sense of owning something, having the part of the American dream. Our home meant everything to us. It was our savings. It was our children's future.
Millions of homeowners losing their property, their marriage destroyed, breaking families. Enough is enough.
Yo estoy apoyando la campaña de Bernie Sanders porque pues como no solo yo, sino que más personas como yo que hemos perdido las propiedades.
I believe in Bernie Sanders because he believes in us.
Soy Bernie Sanders y apruebo este mensaje.
Bernie Sanders, the courage to stand up to big oil because he won't take their money. That's why Sanders said no to the Keystone Pipeline and never waffled. He's also the only candidate to oppose fracking because fracking can endanger our drinking water and threaten our climate. Sanders has the most far-reaching plan to fight climate change and build a clean energy future. Bernie Sanders, people before polluters.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
My brother and I were just waiting for her in the living room when I heard a knock on the door. I saw police. They just grabbed her hands. They put handcuffs on her. They started chaining her up. And I turned around and I saw that they were also taking my brother. And I asked, what's going on? What is this? What's happening? What did we do? And they just looked at me, and there was this, this woman, she just looked at me and she said, they shouldn't be here. They're illegal. They were taking them back to where they're supposed to be.
More for the burn, but that's fine. Hi, my name's Nikki Lutsky, and I'm a student here at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, and I'm a leader with Students for Bernie. March is Women's History Month. As a young woman and a proud feminist, I know that Senator Bernie Sanders will be the best advocate and ally for my future. I know this because I know my family's history. My mom was a student in college when President Reagan cut funding for public university. Her funding dried up and she was forced to drop and work full time. As a single mom without a college degree, she worked hard. I remember one day when I came home from school and I told my mom we were required to purchase a $5 assignment notebook, and she paused and she drew out $5 from her wallet, and that $5 was supposed to last the week for groceries. At that moment, I realized that we were poor. Bernie Sanders is fighting for the single mothers who should never have to choose between investing in their child's education and feeding their family. Bernie Sanders is fighting for the young women like me who are receiving an education to make better lives for ourselves. The political and media establishment does not seem to understand why young people like us love Bernie. They refuse to recognize that most of us do not see a real future ourselves in the current economy. When I graduate, I will be 20 grand in debt, and the job prospects look thin. Like most of us, I worry simply about being able to stay afloat and afford life after college. The political and media establishments are too insulated to know what real students like us are going through. They fear that they might have to finally pay their fair share in taxes so like my mother and I can survive. Perhaps they are comforted by thinking that young people do not vote. Well, I have bad news for them. This election, we are voting, and we are voting for Bernie. I became involved with this campaign because I believe that by working together, we can achieve a political revolution so that no one has to go through what we did to receive an education. I am going to do everything that I can to make sure that every student on this campus gets out to vote. We have 11 days until the primary, and I hope that you guys join me in voting.
And there were like 8 different agents, 8 people to take my mom. A 54.
Bernie, 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 Bernie. So how many people are excited to be here at this very moment? So someone asked me, was I nervous? I said, you can't be nervous when you're speaking about things and people you believe in. And Bernie Sanders is one of those people. My name is Bruce Franks. My name is Bruce Franks, St. Louis native, father, husband, business owner, and I'm running for state representative in the 78th district of St. Louis, Missouri. I endorse Senator Bernie Sanders. I believe in Senator Bernie Sanders. I was asked why. I replied, when you rebuild, you start from the bottom, not from the top. So don't ask me why I endorse the senator. Ask America why not. Senator Sanders knows that violence in our community should not be the norm. The fact that in 1991, my brother, Christopher Harris, was 9 years old when he was killed. He was used as a human shield. Senator Sanders knows that the root cause of violence is lack of jobs, education, and resources. Senator Sanders said, we can't live in a country where African Americans are disproportionately harassed and subject to police brutality and injustices. That speaks to me, because I'm a book often judged but never read. And no matter what, I often fit the description. So when rebuilding, you start from the bottom, never from the top. Don't ask me why I endorse Senator Sanders. Ask America why not. Senator Sanders believes that health care is an American right. No matter your race, your sex, sexual orientation, or economic status. He knows that 45,000 people die a year due to lack of health care, and that's not acceptable. So I endorse Bernie because women's right and pay equality is a strong part of his platform, as is mine. Bernie Sanders has been fighting against educational injustices for over 40 years. When researching Bernie a while back, I learned something. Senator Sanders has been making impossible possible for a long time, so why stop now? Big companies, political status, billions of dollars, that doesn't make you a machine. We the people are the machine. We the people will walk and fight with Bernie till the end. So remember, when you're rebuilding, you start from the bottom, not from the top. Don't ask us why we endorse Senator Sanders. Ask America why not.
Thank you so much. I don't know what I could add to what Bruce just said. That was an incredible statement. Bruce, thank you very much. And to the band Animals in Hindsight, and Travis Young and Alicia Sonia and Nicole Michelle Lutsky, we thank you very much for those kind introductions. I think Bruce summarized it all. Why not? Why not? Why not create the kind of country we know we can become? And the answer is too many people have been crushed intellectually and emotionally, and they've given up. That's what it's about. It's not what's right or wrong. It's about what we can do. And many people say, we can't do it. The billionaire class is too powerful. Wall Street is too powerful. The drug companies are too powerful. The corporate media is too powerful. We can't do it. What this campaign is about is saying, you know what? We can create the nation we want to become. And as Bruce just said, the way we create this nation that we know we can become is when we do not allow the Trumps and others of the world to divide us up. So the questions that we are asking in America, why does it happen that today we have massive income and wealth inequality? Why does it happen that in America today, the richest country in the history of the world, most people don't know that because almost all of the new income and wealth being created is going to the top 1%. Why is it in this great country we have more people living in poverty than almost any major country on earth, and we have the highest rate of childhood poverty? Why is it that we are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave? Why is it that we have, Bruce made this point, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth? That's right. That's right. China, 4 times our size, communist authoritarian country. We have more people in jail than China. That's right. That's right. It is a national tragedy. And disproportionately, the people in jail are African American, Latino, Native American. Do you think there may be a connection to the fact that we have more people in jail than we have very, very high rates of youth unemployment? White kids who graduated high school today, unemployed, underemployed, 33%, Latino 36%, African American kids 51%. So here is a not so radical idea. How about investing in education and jobs for our young people? Education and jobs, not more jails, not more incarceration. Over the last 30 years, millions of people have been arrested for possession of marijuana. Right now, as part of the Federal Controlled Substance Act, marijuana is a Schedule I drug alongside of heroin. Now, you can argue the pluses and minuses of marijuana, but it ain't heroin. And I hope and I trust that everybody here knows that heroin is a killer drug devastating my state of Vermont, hitting New England and all over this country very hard. Stay away from damn heroin. When we talk about what's going on in America, if we stand together, we can significantly change things. Let me give you some examples. Number one, what this campaign is about is doing something fairly radical for American politics. We're telling the truth. You know, the truth is not
corrupt campaign finance system.
The only way we go forward is when we honestly understand what's going on in our world. All right, and here are some truths that are unpleasant. Number one, you live in a country today which has a corrupt campaign finance system undermining American democracy. Now, what democracy is about is not complicated. You have your ideas, I have mine, you disagree with me, you vote for me, you vote against me. That's called democracy. One person, one vote. Democracy is not about billionaires buying elections. Democracy is not about Wall Street and corporate America putting
that is more money than either the Democratic or Republican parties.
Super PACs. Democracy is not about the Koch brothers and a handful of billionaires spending $900 million in this campaign cycle. That is more money than either the Democratic or Republican parties are spending. When you have a situation where one family is spending more money than either of the major political parties, that's not democracy. That is oligarchy, and we're going to change it. Democracy is not about cowardly Republican governors trying to suppress the vote, making it harder for old people or people of color or young people to participate in the political process. If Republican governors don't have the guts to run in free and fair elections, they should get out of politics and get another job. In America today, we have one of the lowest voter turnouts of any major country on earth. I want to change that. I want to see us have one of the highest voter turnouts. And in America, we need language that is very, very simple. If you are 18 years of age and a citizen of this country, you are registered to vote. End of discussion. And I want everybody, whether you're progressive, conservative, moderate, Democrat, Republican, whatever, to be able to run for office without begging wealthy people for campaign contributions. And that is why I believe we need to move to public funding of elections. So let me repeat to you one promise that I've made for months. No nominee of mine to the United States Supreme Court will get that position unless he or she is loud and clear that they will vote to overturn Citizens United.
What we talk about in this campaign is a corrupt campaign finance system and a rigged economy. What does that mean, a rigged economy? Let me give you an example. You got governors all over this country who are talking about welfare abuse. They're worried about poor people ripping off the welfare system. Let me tell you what really goes on. And when you want to talk about welfare abuse, I want all of you to understand that the major welfare abuser in this country is not some poor mother. It is the wealthiest family in this country, the Walton family of Walmart. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that Walmart, owned by the wealthiest family in America, the Waltons, pays wages so low that many of their employees are forced to go on Medicaid, food stamps, or go into subsidized housing. Who is paying for those food stamps, Medicaid, and subsidized housing? You are. So what you got is the middle class of this country, through higher taxes, is subsidizing the Walton family that is not paying their workers a living wage. So I say to the Walton family, worth some $60, $70 billion, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. See, that's what a rigged economy is about, when you have to subsidize the wealthiest family in America. Now, when we talk about creating an economy that works for all of us, what do we have to do? Number one, we've got to recognize that a $7.25 an hour minimum wage is a starvation wage. I have talked to workers all across this country, and what they tell me is, Bernie, we can't make it on $7.25 an hour. We can't make it on $8. We can't make it on $9 an hour. And they're right. And that is why we have got to raise the minimum wage in this country to a living wage, $15 an hour. I have talked, now one of the things about this campaign is talking about issues that the media chooses not to talk about. And the reason is, number one, these are too complicated. You can't say them in a 3-second soundbite. Or else they run into conflicts of interest with the people who own the media. But here is an issue that we have got to address. A great nation is not judged by the number of millionaires and billionaires it has. It is judged by how it treats the weakest and most vulnerable amongst us. And when we talk about weak and vulnerable, we're talking about little kids. We're talking about kids living in poverty, kids who have nothing. Kids who are going to totally inadequate child care facilities. And we are also talking about senior citizens. I have talked to seniors, and this doesn't get much discussion, but all across this country you have seniors and disabled veterans trying to make it on $12,000, $13,000 a year. Put yourself right now into the place of somebody who's 80, 85 years old, a disabled vet, a senior. You got health care costs, you got prescription drug costs, you got to keep your house warm in the winter. How do you make it on $12,000 a year? And the answer is, you don't. You don't. A moral people does not turn its back on those folks who raised us and built this country. Now, in the midst of that, in the midst of millions of seniors struggling to make it on $11,000, $12,000 a year, many Republicans actually want to cut Social Security. Well, I've got news for them. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security benefits. And we are going to make sure that the veterans of this country, the people who put their lives on the line to defend us, get the health care and the benefits that they earned. Now, this campaign is successful because we are listening to people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. I don't go around this country sitting in mansions, collecting millions of dollars, hearing the woes of billionaires. There are other more important issues that I've got to worry about. And we listen to young people, and this is what young people are telling me. They're saying, Bernie, how does it happen that we have to end up $30,000, $50,000, $80,000 in debt for the crime of trying to get a decent education? What I ask of you and I ask of the American people is think outside of the box, think outside of the status quo. Take a deep breath and just ask yourself this question. Everybody here knows, everybody in America knows, that in order to compete in a competitive global economy, we need the best educated workforce in the world. Correct? All right. This is kind of a no-brainer. A no-brainer. To have the best educated workforce, we have got to encourage young people to get all of the education that they need. We should not be punishing people for getting an education. We should encourage people to get an education. You want to hear crazy? Here's crazy. Talk to a young person in Iowa, went to college for 2 years, $60,000 in debt, dropped out of school. A young woman in Burlington, Vermont, my city. Her dream was to go to medical school. She accomplished that dream. Now practicing primary health care. She is $300,000 in debt. A young dentist in Iowa, $400,000 in debt. It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. So we're going to do two things. Number one, in the year 2016, when we talk about public education, you cannot just continue to talk about first grade through 12th grade. The world has changed. First grade through 12th grade was a great idea 50 years ago. You had a high school degree 50 years ago. You can go out and earn a good living. That world has changed. So when I talk about public education today, it must mean free tuition at public colleges and universities. Some people say, oh, this is a radical idea. It is not a radical idea. It is not a radical. I mean, right now, tuition, college education in Germany, Scandinavia is free. All right, and it's free because they understand that the future of their countries depend on young people getting the best education that they can. So this is not a radical idea. In fact, I'll tell you this. Some of you may not know this. 50 or 60 years ago, you could go to major and excellent public colleges and universities in America virtually tuition free. That was America back then. If we could do it 60 years ago, we damn well can do it today. Now, many of my critics say, well, that's a great idea, but how are you going to pay for it? It's just so expensive. So let me back it up a little bit. Just talked to some of the media a moment ago, and they asked this question. It's a fair question. This is what everybody here has got to understand. In the last 30 years in this country, there has been a massive redistribution of wealth. Problem is, it's gone in the wrong direction. Middle class has shrunk. Trillions of dollars have left the middle class, gone into the hands of the top 1/10 of 1%. Top 1/10 of 1% has seen a doubling in the percentage of wealth they own. Now, when the middle class was shrinking and almost all new wealth and income going to the top 1/10 of 1%, I didn't hear any of the establishment saying, oh, this is terrible, this is awful. But when some of us talk about redistributing that wealth and income back to the middle class, oh, this is the worst thing that ever happened. So I'll tell you how we're going to pay. I will tell you how we're going to pay to make public colleges and universities tuition-free and substantially lower interest rates on student debt. And what we are going to do is impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. Now, all of you know that 10 years ago or so, Wall Street's greed, illegal behavior, and recklessness drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. Now, after Wall Street did that, they went to the Congress and they said, please bail us out. Against my vote, Congress did bail them out. Now, if we could bail out the crooks on Wall Street, I think it is now time for Wall Street to help the middle class. And that is why I believe we should impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. Every psychologist who studies human development understands that the most important years of a human being's life are 0 through 4. That's when we develop intellectually and emotionally. And yet today, when I talk to young couples with little babies, they say, Bernie, we can't afford good quality and affordable child care. We can't find that. I believe that we have got to transform our child care system, create hundreds of thousands of jobs, making sure that the littlest Americans, the youngest, the future of this country, have the early education that they deserve. This campaign has talked to the African American community. And the African American community is saying, how does it happen that we have so many people in jail? How does it happen that a black male baby born today, unless we change this, stands a 1 in 4 chance of ending up in jail? How does it happen? How does it happen that unarmed African Americans are being killed by police officers? And what that tells me, and it's not just the African American community that's upset about it, it is all Americans. We need real criminal justice reform. And let me tell you what that means. I'm a former mayor of the largest city in Vermont, Burlington, Vermont. I have worked with police officers for many, many years. The vast majority of police officers are hardworking, they are honest, and they have a very, very difficult job. But when a police officer, like any other public official, breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. Number two, police departments should not look like occupying armies. We need to demilitarize many local police departments and make police departments do what they are supposed to do: serve the people, be part of the community. Number three, we need to do everything that we can to make police departments look like the diversity of the communities that they serve. In terms of criminal justice, we have in this nation a very, very serious problem with substance abuse and substance addiction. And we need to recognize that alcohol or drug addiction is not a criminal justice issue, it is a health care issue. Which means that we need to significantly expand our capabilities to treat substance and drug addiction. It's a huge issue that we've got to address. When we talk about criminal justice, we also have to end this concept of minimal sentencing. Judges need more discretion. When we talk about criminal justice, we need to understand that our rate of recidivism, people who leave jail, go to the civil society, they come back to jail in much too large numbers. That means that when people leave jail, they need to have the education and the job training they need so they don't get caught up in the same environment which got them into jail in the first place. This campaign is talking to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. And what they are saying is that they are tired of living in fear, living under the shadows. They want and need a path toward citizenship. This campaign is talking to people in the Native American community. And I don't have to explain to anybody here that the way our country from day one has treated Native Americans is obscene. And those problems continue today. I talked to some Native American leaders in Minnesota last week. 50% of their kids today are dropping out of school, high school. Alcoholism is rampant. Poverty is off the charts. Young people are killing themselves. Drug addiction is widespread. For those people who were here first, we owe them respect and dignity. We've got to change our policies. Everybody here knows how real change comes about. It never comes about from the top on down. It always comes from the bottom on up. Here in the Midwest, 100 years ago or longer, workers said to their employers, "We will not be treated like animals. We need dignity." They stood, they fought, they were beaten up, they were jailed, they were on picket lines to form unions. so that they could engage in collective bargaining, earn decent wages and decent benefits. That's how change takes place. Change took place and takes place in the civil rights movement when the African American community and their white allies said loudly, no, this country will not continue racism, segregation, and bigotry. And millions of people demanded change. A 100 years ago today, women did not have the right to vote. They did not have the right to go to many schools or do the jobs that they wanted to do. 100 years ago, not a long time in history. And yet women and their male allies said, sorry, women in this country will not continue to be second-class citizens. If we were in this room 10 years ago, and I'm talking about how real change takes place, if we were in this room 10 years ago, which is no time at all from an historical perspective, somebody jumped up and said, you know, I think gay marriage will be made legal in 50 states of this country in the year 2015. The person next to him would have said, what are you smoking? Which raises another interesting issue. But what happened? And this is what change is about. It's the most important point I think I can make to you. What happened is the gay community and their straight allies said, you know what? In America, and believe me, against enormous opposition and hatred, gay community said, you know, in this country, people should have the right to love whoever they want, regardless of gender. And today, and you cannot appreciate how rapidly that transformation has taken place. Today you go to high schools in my state of Vermont, conservative areas, and you ask kids about gay marriage, and they say, what's the issue? We don't know what the issue is. That's what a revolutionary change is about. When we And I'll give you another example, even more contemporary. If we were here 7 years ago, and somebody jumped up and said, you know, Bernie, this $7.25 an hour minimum wage is a disaster. I was in Detroit a couple of years ago, and I talked to young people working at McDonald's. These were adults, some of them had kids. $7.25 an hour, 20 hours a week, got on a bus, went to a different McDonald's, trying to make a living. Now, 7, 8 years ago, somebody said, you know, we got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. People would say, are you crazy? That's doubling the minimum wage. We can't. That's just too radical an idea. But you know what happened? Because people in the fast food industry, at McDonald's, at Burger King, at Wendy's, all these places, they stood up and they fought back. And you know what happened? A couple of years ago in Seattle, $15 an hour minimum wage. In San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Oregon, $15 an hour minimum wage. And that's what we have to do nationally. So what is my point? My point is that an idea, whether it is civil rights and the idea, just another example, again, you take it for granted, but don't. If we were here 40 years ago and somebody said, oh, in 2008, we're going to elect an African American as president of the United States, nobody would have believed it. And this has nothing to do whether you like Obama, you don't like Obama. It is the fact that the American people overcame centuries of racism and said, you know what, we're going to vote for somebody based on his ideas and not the color of his skin. A big deal. So my point is that when my opponent or anybody else says, well, Bernie's a nice guy, but he's thinking too big, making public colleges and universities tuition free. Oh, that is a crazy idea. It is not a crazy idea. We can make it happen. And mark my words, if millions of students and young people demand it, it will happen. And then 20 years from now, some guy or woman will be up here and she'll say, well, you know, 20 years ago, public colleges and universities weren't tuition free. And people say, that's crazy. How could that be? That's how change comes about. Have a vision. Be prepared to stand up and fight for what is right. Now, I want to just say a few words about some of the significant differences between Secretary Clinton and myself. Number one, and this is a very profound difference. Secretary Clinton has a number of super PACs. In the last reporting period, her largest super PAC collected $15 million from Wall Street. Now, every politician in the world, Democrat or Republican, always says, oh, yes, I get all this money from Wall Street and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry. Doesn't impact me. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Well, then the question that we have to ask is, if it doesn't matter, why are these people pouring millions of dollars into your campaign? Now, there's a lot that I can say about the greed and recklessness and fraudulent behavior of Wall Street, but what I will also say is they are not dumb. They do not throw their money around for no reason at all. Second of all, Secretary Clinton has given major speeches behind closed doors to Wall Street, receiving $225,000 a speech. Now, what I think is, if you're going to get paid $225,000 for a speech to Wall Street, it must be a really fantastic speech. And it's surely a speech you're going to want to share with the American people, right? So I would hope that the Secretary is prepared to share that extraordinary $225,000 speech with all of us. Second issue, an issue the media doesn't cover very much, but it is of enormous consequence for our country and for the Midwest in particular. We have had, for the last 30 plus years, disastrous trade policies. I know it's not a sexy issue, but it is an enormously important issue. And what these trade agreements are about, NAFTA, CAFTA, Permanent Normal Trade Relations with China, Trans-Pacific Partnership, what these trade agreements are about is, number one, by and large, they are written by corporate America and the big money interests. These are the guys who write it. And what do they want? What they want is to have an agreement which enables them to shut down manufacturing plants in the United States of America, so they don't have to pay workers here in Illinois or Michigan or Ohio 20, 25 bucks an hour. They don't have to pay them a decent wage. They don't have to negotiate with unions. They don't have to protect environmental laws. They can shut down here. They can go to Mexico. They can go to China. They can go to Vietnam. They can go to very low-wage countries. And then they can bring their products back into this country. Here's what's happened since 2001. Since 2001 in America, we have lost almost 60,000 factories, millions of decent-paying jobs. Our disastrous trade policies are one of the reasons as to why that has happened. People have lost good-paying jobs, then they go out and work for jobs paying them $8 or $9 an hour. You can't make it on that. Now, on that issue, I will tell you that from day one, I understood what these trade agreements were about. I knew that they were designed to protect corporate America at the expense of working people. I voted and helped lead the opposition against virtually every one of these trade agreements. On the other hand, Secretary Clinton supported NAFTA. She supported permanent normal trade relations with China. Those agreements have cost us millions of jobs as a nation, hit the Midwest particularly hard. If elected president, trust me, we will have a new set of trade policies. Corporate America wants us to buy their products. They tell us that every night in 30-second TV ads. If they want us to buy their products, the time is overdue for them to start manufacturing those products in America, not in China. Third area, foreign policy. Enormously important part of what a president does. 2002, I heard, listen very carefully when I was a member of the House, what George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and all those people were saying about Iraq. I listened carefully. I didn't believe what they said. I voted against the war in Iraq. And it gives me no joy to tell you, but if you go to my website, berniesanders.com, hear what I said in 2002 about what would happen when a political vacuum developed in Iraq after Saddam Hussein was overthrown. It's not just good enough to overthrow dictators. You got to be thinking about what happens the day after. That war in Iraq is the worst foreign policy disaster in the modern history of America. I voted against that war. Secretary Clinton supported that war, voted for it. 1996, there was a homophobic piece of legislation brought forth by right-wing Republicans. It was called the so-called Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA. What it said is that if a gay couple were married in a state that allowed for gay marriage, their marriage could not be transferred, the rights of that marriage could not be transferred to other states, and that gay married couples could not enjoy federal benefits like heterosexual couples. Now, the world has changed in the last 20 years, but back in 1996, voting against that homophobic legislation was not an easy vote. Vast majority of members of Congress did not vote against DOMA. I did. Secretary Clinton supported DOMA. Now, when we talk about the issues facing our country, I want to tell you that I am a member of the Senate Committee on the Environment and the Senate Committee on Energy. Let there be no doubt, I don't want anybody in this room to have any doubt about it. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already wreaking havoc in our country and around the world, and don't let anybody tell you differently. We have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for future generations. We have got to have the guts to stand up to the fossil fuel industry and tell them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And when we think, and when we talk about thinking outside of the box, envisage an energy system which is based on energy efficiency and sustainable energy. We can do that. And when we think big, please understand, there is one major country on earth, the United States, that does not guarantee health care to all of its people. The United Kingdom does it, France does it, Germany does it, Scandinavia does it, Holland does it, our neighbors to the north, Canada does it. Health care for all. Now, I've been criticized for saying this, but let me say it again loudly and clearly. I believe health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. Yes, I believe we can take on the private insurance companies and the drug companies and pass a Medicare for all health care program. Now, one other charge thrown against me is people say, well, Bernie is a nice guy, but, you know, he's just not electable, can't win an election. So let me set the record straight. There have been a lot of polls go up and down, and polls are not all that important. But there have been a lot of polls out there, most of the polls, that put Bernie Sanders against Donald Trump. We beat him in almost all those polls. In the last CNN poll, Hillary Clinton was beating him by 8 points. We beat him by 12 points, and that's true of many polls around the country. Let me tell you why we will defeat Trump. We will defeat Trump because in America, people understand that togetherness, bringing our people together, is more important and trumps divisiveness, dividing us up. The sense of community, knowing that we are not alone, that we are here to help each other, trumps selfishness. And most importantly, what the American people profoundly understand, based in all of the teachings of every great religion on earth, is that love trumps hatred. On March 15th, there will be a primary here in Illinois. If there is a large voter turnout, if working people and young people come out and vote, we will win. Please make that happen. Thank you all.
Ain't
Aloha, I'm Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. As a veteran of 2 Middle East deployments, I know firsthand the cost of war. I know how important it is that our Commander-in-Chief has the sound judgment required to know when to use America's military power and when not to use that power. As a Vice Chair of the DNC, I'm required to stay neutral in Democratic primaries, but I cannot remain neutral any longer. The stakes are just too high. That's why today I'm endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders to be our next President and Commander-in-Chief of the United States. We need a Commander-in-Chief who has foresight, who exercises good judgment, and who understands the need for a robust foreign policy which defends the safety and security of the American people, and who will not waste precious lives and money on interventionist wars of regime change. Such counterproductive wars undermine our national security and economic prosperity. As these elections continue across the country, the American people are faced with a very clear choice. We can elect a president who will lead us into more interventionist wars of regime change, or we can elect a president who will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. It's with this clear choice in mind that I'm resigning as Vice Chair of the DNC so that I can strongly support Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. And now I ask you, stand with me and support Bernie Sanders.